If you turn on your television, you're going to see a lot of police shows and shows about hospitals, those kinds of dramas. But one kind of show you won't see is a show about some situation in a public library. And why not? We can have a television show about a public library, all the different kinds of situations. The show might not even be on television. How about if we had it on the internet? How about if the show wasn't written by one person? How about if it was written collaboratively by many people? Some of them librarians, some of them not. How about this? How about if we start off with a premise for the show, something like this. Let's have a small town someplace in America, or it could be someplace outside of America. And in this small town, the city or the town is about to close their library. They don't have enough funding to staff the library, so they're about to close it. And in this town, there is a young girl who's a 5th grader named Maria. And she is from a homeschooling family. And her parents have told her that she either has to get involved in community service or enter the public schools. And she would rather continue with her homeschooling. So she is very interested in finding something to get involved with in community service. And she attends a city council meeting in this small town, and they're talking about closing the library. And she speaks up. She says, "I'd like to be the librarian for this town." And everybody turns around and looks at her. She's only in 5th grade. It doesn't seem really believable or plausible, but she speaks her mind. And she says she'll staff the library from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. and that in the mornings and early afternoons she's going to continue with her homeschooling. That's the beginning of the story. And now we have to staff the library with some characters. How about this for some characters? How about if we had some folks who you wouldn't expect to see staffing a library? Like maybe somebody who's illiterate. Let's call that person, we should give him a name. Let's call them Neil. The person is Neil. And he does not read or write, but he wants to work in the library. And he shows up one day when the library is recently opened with Maria running it. And he said, "I'd like to work here." And she says, "Tell me about yourself." And he says, "Well, I can't read or write." And she says, "Well, that doesn't automatically disqualify you from working in a library. What are you good at?" And he says, "I'm good at listening." And she says, "You know what? That's an important skill. We need people who can listen well." And Neil had worked as a designer, like a landscape designer. So design is one of his skills, as well as listening. And the other staff in the library would also be people that you wouldn't expect in a library. We have somebody who's blind, who wants to show up and work in the library. And he has a lot of talents, or she has a lot of talents. And how about if we had somebody who was an ex-convict? How about if they came to work in the library? And how about if the ex-convict wanted to set up a couple of Linux computers in the library and brought that idea to Maria? And Maria would say something like this: "I don't really care if there's computers here or not, but what this library does need is a newsletter. And if you can produce a newsletter for the library, then you can set up a couple of Linux computers." And this ex-convict tells Maria that he only has one hand because he lost the other hand in an industrial accident at the meatpacking plant. And the hand that he lost was his dominant hand, so the only hand he has left, he lost his right hand and he's a left-handed person. Or he's lost his left hand and he's a left-handed person. Now he only has his right hand left. So she says, "Well, do you want to produce the newsletter or don't you?" And so he starts making the newsletter for the town and for the town's library. And she lets him set up some Linux computers. And for every good drama, we need a nemesis. So how about this for a nemesis? In this town, there is a newspaper publisher who's a woman. Her name is Priscilla. And she's a former librarian, a professional librarian. She has a librarian's degree. And she is aghast. She is aghast that this 5th grader would take over the city's library because she has no training, no professional training. She's going to make all sorts of mistakes. That says Priscilla. Priscilla's husband, David, he's very kindly and gentle, and he says things like this to Priscilla: "You're absolutely right. I totally agree with you, but we should just give that little girl a chance." And Priscilla, who runs the newspaper, she's constantly doubting whether Maria can run this library. And that's the long-term tension in the drama between Priscilla, who claims that the library is run by a schoolgirl and a bunch of misfits, and Maria, who has an expansive view of what the library ought to be in the town. And step by step, she expands the purpose and function of the library to meet different needs. And that is the drama that's kind of bouncing around in my head. Wouldn't it be cool if lots of different people would contribute to that drama? They could contribute little episodes. Might even be people working in the library field who have a situation that they want to bring to the drama. It could be fictionalized or real, but if it's real, they might want to be tactful if there's any person who might be harmed or feel that some dramatic coverage of that issue is inappropriate. And so it would be sort of a wiki-style open content television show called Fifth Grade Librarian. Those are just the outlines of what I've been thinking about, but I welcome other people to send me an email. I'm Phil Shapiro, and I'm at pshapiro@his.com. I'll spell that out. It's pshapiro@his.com. Fifth Grade Librarian, it's a new television show. It won't even be on television. It's going to be probably just produced for the internet, collaboratively by you. So what kind of personality does Maria, the fifth grade librarian, have? Her character is kind of a blend of other characters in literature. She's got a little bit of Anne of Green Gables in her. It's kind of feisty and spunky. She's got a little bit of Lisa Simpson, you know, the smart young woman in The Simpsons on television. And she has some uncommon wisdom. And she makes mistakes sometimes, like everybody. She makes mistakes. And one interesting angle to the drama is that Maria likes to tell about her day at work at the public library to her little sister, who shares her room with her. And her little sister is in 2nd grade. And unbeknownst to people in the town, Maria is grooming her little sister to become the town librarian when her little sister is in 5th grade. So in 3 years' time, Maria would like her sister to take over the job. And at that time, Maria might have other aspirations in the town. But that's up to the writers of the drama to determine.